Alright guys, the nectar flow is on. We got blackberry, dewberries, lots of black locust going, and we're pushing some of these bees out of the box. As you can see this swarm over here. It's just something you got to learn to deal with. So I want to give you a few tips on getting swarms and how to secure them so that they won't leave the box. So first step you want to do is to make sure that that swarm don't get away from you. Is get you some light sugar syrup in a bottle. The lighter it is, the better off you are. It's not going to clog up your nozzle. Now, let's see here. You guys can see this swarm here. It's a good looking swarm, pretty big. We're going to wet it down. And by wetting it down like this, we're going to ensure that it doesn't take flight on us. Now that's going to give us a minute to get our nuke box and get us a frame of open larvae. Now this open larvae is going to anchor this swarm to that box, and they're not going to leave it after that point. Excuse me there, guys. Billy Joe's here getting us a frame of larvae. Well, that's mostly nectar. You can see how they've backfilled this brood with nectar. Everything's just plugged out with nectar right now, so having to manage for space. But what we mainly need is that white larva in there. We don't need no bees on it. We don't need anything else but this open larvae. And then we'll give the rest of it foundation to them. So we don't have to worry about our swarm taking off, because we went ahead and spritzed it down with that sugar water. So we know that they ain't going nowhere. Now, let's set y'all up so I can have both my hands. Well, let's go. Okay. That works pretty good, huh? Now, if you got a pair of pruning shears, that'll do you a lot of good. Getting this stuff out of your way so you don't end up dropping a bunch of bees. Get this junk out of the way. All this honeysuckle vine. You don't want to jar them too hard, so you want some sharp pruning shears. Now, I've left the frames out of the box, just this good brood frame that we need, because it's a bigger swarm and we need the space. Let's move y'all. Okay. Now, I got all this big gap in here, and with this gesture box, I fold that lid over so that I can, I'm not blocking y'all's view, am I? So that I can catch any that I spill over there. Now these are weighted down. I'm going to bring it on up. shake these in there. Well, I guess I'll take the camera right like this and show y'all. You can see a pretty big swarm. And they can't really fly and go anywhere, so now we'll come back up here and take a look. Make sure that we didn't leave the queen on the branch. I don't see her. We didn't drop any on the ground. And I'm fairly confident that we have the queen. We have the bulk of the bees, and whatever little stragglers are left behind over there, I ain't worried about them. They're going to fly back to wherever they come from. So that's how you anchor a swarm, how you keep them in place while you prepare. You can use some lemongrass oil or Swarm Commander or something like that to put some out in the put some scent out and try to draw them to you, but I think it's best if you just make them incapable of flying. Then they're really going to stay there. That was a pretty good sized swarm, wasn't it, Billy?
Yes, sir.
What do you think? 4 pound?
Yes, sir.
It's a good size primary swarm. So trying to keep them in these boxes, but man, when the nectar flow comes on here, it's so strong and quick. There's so many blackberries and black locusts around. Tulip poplar is probably not too far off. I ain't looked. So, well, we're going to get back to it, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Hey guys, I wanted to give you an add-on here at the end. When I make my videos, I'm pretty much shooting from the hip. I'm out working the bees, and when an opportunity arises that I think will make a good video, or something that I would like to share with you guys that I think somebody could learn from, I just hit record. Because of that, a lot of times I don't have all the thoughts in my head that people would be asking questions, this or that, or look at it at a different perspective that a new beekeeper or someone else may look at it as. So I have friends of mine review my videos before I submit them to try to give me a little feedback on it, because the whole point of them is for you guys to get something from it and learn from it. So with this particular video, my buddy, he brought up some very good questions, and some that I really wish that I had brought up when I made the video. So, how long do you lock the entrance for? Which also ties into how long do you leave them in the box? So I recommend that you leave them in this box at least overnight. I do have the entrance closed when I shake them in. I've found that often if you leave them open like that, they'll take off. They'll leave as soon as they get that syrup cleaned up off each other. Sometimes they will take off. Even if you put the frame of brood in there, if there's still a bunch of bees flying, if you didn't get the bulk of them in there, you're trying to let them march in or what have you. There's a lot of scent in the air, and the bees are scattered, and there's divided. Some want to stay, some want to go. It's just chaos. So I like to take the option from them by locking them inside, and I put them in a shady spot because they will overheat. Especially if they're not in a good ventilated box. Gesture boxes are pretty well ventilated, so it's definitely it definitely helps, but they can still overheat. So you want to put them somewhere cool in the shade, locked up. Do you have to move them to another yard? I recommend that you do. I think you'll have better success in keeping them in the box, or keeping them from drifting back to where they came from. It doesn't have to be permanent. You can take them somewhere and let them fly for a few days, and then lock them back up and bring them back to your yard. So it doesn't have to be permanent, but I think you have more success in keeping that swarm or that colony at this point if you remove them from the area where they came from. Why open brood? Open brood because the way it was put to me years ago was if there's a baby on your doorstep, if someone leaves a baby on your doorstep, you're going to take care of it. Most people, even other animals, if there's a child or a baby or something like that, they're going to take care of it. Capped brood doesn't need tended for, really. It needs to be kept warm, but it doesn't need any tending because, the pupae have already spun their cocoon and they're going to emerge fully functioning adult bees. So the swarm or colony, either way, if you're using it, they don't really look at capped brood like that. Open brood, yes, and it will still have some pheromones and smells. It will definitely interest the queen. The queen in that swarm, she's going to be looking for uh, where that other queen or what laid these eggs, where they come from. So it interests them. They want to take care of them. They'll immediately start taking care of them, taking care of that larva, um, and it just anchors them in the box. I've not had them leave open brood once they've been stuck in there with it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Do you add them back to the hive that they came from? I suppose you could. I just don't think you'd have very much luck with it. Oftentimes, that impulse is so strong, and they've decided they want to swarm. They decided they're going to swarm, and they have. Um, that's no longer their home. They don't want to be in there. So you would have to do some management there. You'd have to probably cut down the cells and do lots of different things. I think the best way to go about it is just to do a little damage control after the fact, instead of trying to immediately fix them. We don't want swarms in our apiaries, but it happens. We may be working really hard, doing the best we can do to keep these things from happening, but sometimes the bees have other ideas. Right here in West Tennessee right now, the blackberry and the black locust are just, really putting out some nectar. So, in the larger colonies, they're running out of space really quickly, and that can cause some swarming. As all that nectar comes in and they don't have any room up top, especially if you put foundation on them, because they can't store it in the comb, they'll go down and store it in the brood nest. And if they store it in the brood nest, then the queen can't lay, and now they're crowded and they have a congestion problem. So they will swarm, hit the trees. It's unfortunate, but you just got to do the best you can do. At that point, I recommend, if you can, you catch that swarm. If you miss that swarm, that's okay. It happens. It's going to happen again too. I would recommend that you go back to the parent colony if you can find it, if you know which one swarmed, and divide those resources up further. I don't like to leave all my eggs in one basket. I like to leave minimal resources that it takes to get a queen mated. By doing so, you have much more to select from. Your chances of getting a mated queen back just doubled or tripled, depending on how many that you made. And the quality of the queen that you're going to get is going to be better because you have the opportunity to pick from the best of those 2 or 3 or what have you. You just would pinch the inferior queen and combine them back in. And it's as simple as that. If you're upset with those swarmy genetics, then you would just cut those cells out altogether, give them a frame of open larvae of the appropriate age, and allow them to draw out cells from some of your better stock. Or you can even introduce a queen, but you have to make sure you cut those cells out. Those are some options that you can do to have some damage control when you deal with swarming. So, if you have any more questions, like my buddy Chris had these, just put them in the comments and I'll get to them. I would like to do another live chat soon, and I'll get that scheduled and announce it. And if you have any questions about swarming, we can go over it then. But feel free to leave it in the comments or on any of my social media pages, and I'll do my best to answer it.